Let me describe someone you might know. They walk into a room. Nothing's wrong. Nobody's fighting, nobody's crying, but their brain has already run a full diagnostic. That person in the corner? Why did they look away when you came in? That smile from your coworker? Why did it stop half a second too early? That text from your boss that said, "Can we talk tomorrow?" Why didn't it have a period at the end? Everyone else is just living. And this person is running background surveillance on a room full of people who are thinking about lunch. Most people would call this a gift, incredible emotional intelligence, rare sensitivity, a superpower. I've been dead for 2,000 years. I've watched this pattern destroy perfectly good humans across every century, every culture, every empire. It's not a gift. It's a smoke alarm that went off in 400 BC and nobody has figured out how to turn it off since. Today, we're going to talk about why some people's brains never actually stop working, where it comes from, what it does to you, and what the people who figured this out before Freud was born actually said about it. Spoiler, they didn't charge $150 an hour. Here's the thing about your nervous system. It was not designed for your life. It was designed for a life where the main daily question was, is that rustling in the grass a wind or something that will eat me? Your amygdala, the part of your brain that sounds the alarm, doesn't know the difference between a lion and a passive-aggressive email. It just knows, threat detected, activate everything, now. There are two types of people who end up with this system running at maximum volume. Type 1 was basically born this way. Researchers call them highly sensitive people, about 20% of the population. Their nervous system processes sensory information more deeply than average. Noise, light, social tension, the energy in a room. They don't choose this. Their filter is just finer than everyone else's. The world comes in at higher resolution, which sounds beautiful, until you realize high resolution means you also see every crack, every flaw, every almost smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes. Type 2 learned it. And this is where it gets darker. Imagine a child growing up in a house where the adult's mood changes without warning. No rules, no patterns, just sometimes fine, sometimes not, and you never know which one you're walking into. That child's brain does something remarkable. It builds a threat detection system from scratch. They learn to read the sound of keys in the door to know what kind of evening it's going to be. They learn to measure silence. They learn to predict, because prediction is control, and control is safety. Epictetus, Stoic philosopher born a slave, wrote about this in the 1st century. He said, "We suffer not from events themselves, but from our judgments about events." He understood from very personal experience that when you have no control over what happens to you, your brain shifts everything it has into trying to predict what comes next. He called it a trap. A very logical, very understandable, completely self-defeating trap. The child who learned to read the room becomes the adult who cannot stop reading every room. The skill that kept them safe becomes the system that never lets them rest. So what does this actually look like when you're living it? Sign 1. You're never just in a conversation. You're in a conversation and simultaneously running a parallel analysis of the conversation. Your boss sends a Slack message. "Come see me for a minute." For most people, it's a meeting. For you, it's an event. You scan the word choice. You replay the last 3 interactions. You check if a minute sounds more urgent than usual. You consider 17 possible reasons and rank them by probability of disaster. And you do all of this before you've even stood up from your chair. The neuroscience here is real, by the way. This is your default mode network, the brain system that activates during rest and self-reflection. In most people, it turns on when they're doing nothing. In hypervigilant people, it runs on top of everything else. You're at a dinner, you're laughing, you're present, and a quiet part of your brain is sitting in the corner taking notes. I know that corner well. I've been sitting in it since Plato was alive. Sign 2. You don't just feel emotions, you audit them. Something happens, an emotion arrives, and instead of feeling it, you immediately open an investigation. Why am I anxious right now? Is this anxiety justified? I have a good life. I shouldn't be anxious. The fact that I'm anxious about nothing means something is wrong with me. Now I'm anxious about being anxious. The ancient Greeks had a word for this kind of recursive thinking. Merimnao, to be divided, to be pulled in multiple directions at once. It shows up in Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Which sounds great, until your mind is the thing you can't control. Sign 3. You've lost the ability to take things at face value. Someone compliments your work. Your brain immediately starts looking for the angle. Why now? What do they want? Is this genuine, or are they setting something up? Someone apologizes. You accept it. And a quiet voice asks, did they actually mean it, or were they just managing the situation? This isn't paranoia. This is a brain that learned very early that surface and reality are different things. And it was right. The problem is, it never learned when to stop applying that lesson. Aristotle wrote extensively about phronesis, practical wisdom, the ability to judge a situation correctly. He would have recognized this immediately. He'd say, "You've developed exceptional perceptual ability." And then he'd say, "Here's what most people get wrong about this. They think hypervigilance is about being smart, about being perceptive, about seeing more than other people. It's not. It's about control. Specifically, the belief that if you think hard enough, long enough, thoroughly enough, you can prevent bad things from happening. You cannot. I know this because I've been dead for a very long time, and I can tell you with absolute authority that bad things happen to people who were fully prepared for them and to people who weren't thinking about it at all. The preparation doesn't change the outcome. It just changes how exhausted you are when you arrive. The Stoics called this anticipatory grief, grieving losses that haven't happened yet. Seneca wrote about it directly. He said, "There are more things likely to frighten us than there are to crush us. We suffer more in imagination than in reality." He wasn't being dismissive. He was pointing at something specific. The brain in a threat state doesn't distinguish between a real threat and an imagined one. The cortisol is real either way. The exhaustion is real either way. You can spend years defending yourself from things that never arrive, and the damage to your body and mind is identical to if they had. There's also the body side of this. Hypervigilant people often have extremely sensitive interoception, awareness of internal physical sensations. You drink one coffee, your heart beats slightly faster. Your brain registers the change, interprets it as danger, triggers a stress response, which increases the physical sensation, which confirms the danger signal. You're now in a feedback loop that started with a beverage. Your body has become a data source that your brain cannot stop analyzing. Every sensation becomes a potential signal. Every signal becomes a potential threat. The ancient Stoics didn't have neuroscience, but they had something functionally equivalent, the concept of hegemonikon, the ruling faculty of the mind. And they were very clear that when the ruling faculty becomes obsessed with threat detection, it stops being able to do anything else. You become, as Epictetus put it, a person who is busy being afraid instead of busy living. Now, the part everyone's been waiting for, the solution. And I want to be very clear about something first. The solution is not to become less aware. You cannot unlearn this. You cannot decide to perceive less. That's like asking someone with perfect pitch to just stop noticing when something's out of tune. It doesn't work like that. What can change is the relationship between what you notice and what you do with it. The Stoics had a practice they called prosoche, sustained attention to the self. Not in the anxious self-monitoring way you're already doing, but deliberately, consciously. The difference is direction. Hypervigilance watches the world for threats. Prosoche watches your own responses. Instead of, "Why did they look at me like that?" you ask, "Why did that register as a threat to me?" Instead of analyzing their behavior, you analyze your reaction. It sounds like the same thing. It is not the same thing. First principle, not every silence is a message. Someone doesn't reply for 2 hours. Your brain writes 3 possible narratives, all of them involving your eventual destruction. The Stoic practice here is simple and infuriating. Label the story as a story. I am currently telling myself that this silence means something. Not suppressing it, not arguing with it, just noting that it's a story your brain is generating, not a fact about reality. Marcus Aurelius called this fantasia, impression. He wrote, "First, never let an impression carry you away." He meant, between the event and your reaction, there is a gap. That gap is where your freedom lives. Second principle, not every emotion needs to be solved. An emotion is not a problem, it's information, and information doesn't always require action. You feel anxious. Instead of immediately investigating why, try simply, I notice I feel anxious. Observe it, don't engage with it. This is what the Stoics called apatheia, which does not mean not feeling things, it means not being governed by them. There's a difference between feeling anxiety and building your entire evening around it. Third principle, you are not responsible for everything you perceive. You notice someone is unhappy. You notice tension in a conversation. You notice 100 things other people walk right past. And you feel, somewhere deep down, that noticing means you must act. Fix it, address it, resolve it. You don't. Seeing something clearly does not make you responsible for it. The Stoics were remarkably clear on what belongs to you and what doesn't. Your judgments? Yes. Your responses? Yes. Everyone else's emotional state? Absolutely not. What changes when you start practicing this is not that you see less. You still see everything. You still read the room. You still notice things other people don't. But you stop being pulled by everything you notice. The awareness stays. The exhaustion starts to lift. 2,000 years ago, a former slave sat down and wrote about the mind's tendency to torture itself with things that haven't happened yet. He didn't have a degree in psychology. He didn't have a podcast. He didn't have a $200 workbook with a waiting list. He just paid very close attention to how humans work. You've been doing the same thing your whole life. The difference is, he figured out when to stop. I'm Mori. If any of this felt familiar, the comments are open. I read everything. I have, after all, a lot of time.